Welcome everyone to another session of the Friends of the Bitters Reality series. This is season 2. This is our 3rd episode. So I'm super excited that I have all these great people in my life, whether from my past, current, or heck, people I'm about to meet here in the future. So today I get to bring, this is a very interesting story, okay? Very interesting. Nikolas and I actually crossed paths in Cincinnati, Ohio, where we both attended the University of Cincinnati's DAP program, or Design, Art, and Architecture and Planning School, because we were both in architecture school. But we didn't know each other then, but I recognized his face. And he was doing, either he was talking about shrubs or cocktails in a group that we were both in, a social group on bourbon. And I said, I know him. And also, I think I ran across his Instagram before, because as you all know, I'm always on the search for new and exciting small batch makers, making either shrubs or bitters or syrups in the market that aren't in the big box stores. And so I'm pretty sure I ran across him before, but then when I heard him speak and then I saw his face, I said, I know him. So me, what did I do? I know you. So I want to welcome Nikolas Hall to our session today, and he brings with him threeSpice. But I kind of want him to tell his little story or a bit in terms of, you know, what brought him from Cincinnati to this path of making beautiful shrubs, which I have yet to have in my hand. See?
Miriam, thank you for this platform. Thank you for inviting me. Shrubs soon come. Soon come.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I got to get you some, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm hoping we can make this, you know, I used to say one of my grad school words, make it very discursive, going back and forth, right? But yeah, threeSpice is threeSpice. It's the movement. I always say, you know, living the shrub life. You caught me on a piece I was doing, a presentation I was doing for, I believe that was for the Black Bourbon Society.
Yeah, I think so.
During their bourbon boulé, and I was giving, which was kind of funny, I was giving, so I'm trying to wrap everything up and put a nice little bow around it. So the presentation I was giving for the BBS had a lot, as far as the content, a lot of it was based on what I did, what I researched for my my master's thesis at Cincinnati. And once I did all that, I took that kind of ball of energy and put it into a blog, The Congenial Hour. I started that in 2011, I want to say, either 2010 or 2011. And that had kind of carried me forward. So I had never really done that formal a presentation on, you know, outside of school, you know, on that content. I talk about this stuff all the time and I use it, you know, here and there, but you know, to really get a presentation on it, it was really something. So he reached out to me, and then like, did you go to Cincinnati? I was like, yeah. And I started to look, and I'm like, you know, looking at some of the people we know, and I'm like,
right,
who is she? And it, you know, it's kind of ironic. You called me Nikolas Hall at the beginning. It's Nikolas Hill, but I always joked around that I was a Hall because one of my good friends at Cincinnati, who I graduated with, Bridget Hall, her family was Hall. And they made me like one of their own because I didn't know anyone out in Cincinnati. So I was running around with her family a lot of different things. And me and Bridget just fighting the good fight going through school, making it through the program. That was still had PTSD thinking about it, you know? Yeah. So it was really interesting seeing you and being like, okay, I know my people, but how don't I know her? You know?
Right.
So it was really a trip. So it's great to see, it was definitely great to make the connection, but great to see who you were, what you were doing, and just keep that moving forward. I mean, you know, I'm the type person, once I meet someone, we family, you know, but it's great to see that it's not just, oh yeah, someone, yeah, I know, and, you know, I know them, but that's it. But to see that, oh no, this is a person, we're going to be making some things happen in the future, you know. Yeah, so that was really cool.
Yeah. So this is what I find so unique, right? And you touched on this already with, you know, your trajectory from architecture to your blog to bartending, and we kind of talked about that in your introduction. But really, what I find so cool, and I don't know if you've gone back and viewed some of my earlier sessions, Dominique Baldrick, has kind of a similar background. She was in some mechanical engineering. She's an engineer. She has a real keen eye for design as well. And it was so interesting because it was two Black women talking about IMK. Mm. You don't usually have that conversation. We were just like, how the hell, who are you? So I am in love with the concept, and I love the fact from a multidisciplinary way, I don't know how to put personality, I guess you could say, that we are not afraid to extend ourselves beyond one discipline or one perspective or one view. Meaning we can take what we know and learn and what we love from design and architecture, from the aesthetic to the building up of a building, the foundation, to how we view our cocktail making, from the base, from the modifier to the sweet or the sugar or the sour, and building it up that way. And I see the ties across the board. It's kind of like, I don't know, kind of like the Matrix, where you're kind of stepping back and you see all these things working together. So to be able to see you and knowing that you have that similar background and that view is very exciting for me. But kind of take us to that in terms of like, you know.
Yeah, I'll state it real simple. You know, there's a lot of things that when it comes to thinking, whether it's design thinking or concept development or whatever, you can go as far out as you want and make things as complicated as you want to. But at the end of the day, it comes down to and I've said it 50 million times, who are you and what do you want to be, right? Yeah. So at the essence, you know, what is your ethos? What's the core of you? What are you passionate about? How do you show passion? Yes. You know, when it comes down to how I kind of weave this web around everything I'm doing and kind of put this whole thing together, I always think back to one of my guy Lawrence, my guy LC. He's one of the first people I met in architecture when I was fresh out of high school. And he told me when, you know, I was working at a firm on an internship and going back to school, going, down to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And then on my summer and winter breaks, I would come back work at the firm. So I was there for like a couple of years. And one of those terms, it was probably towards the end, he was like, I was starting to get into sophomore studio. And he was like, the biggest thing is figure out, you're going to do a lot of things. Figure out what it is you like to do. It's going to be some things you do like to do, some things you don't want to see that again ever in life, but just focus on what you like to do, what you want to do. Yeah. And that kind of carried me through that simple, simple piece of advice. So then what, no matter what I've done, I mean, whatever kind of project or design or whatever, especially I'm thinking about my thesis. My thesis was relatively complex, but it was pretty damn simple. It all came down to, why are we doing this? Like, why do we design? You can come up with the most elaborate, complex structure you want to, but what's it for? What's the purpose of it? So how I kind of set things up is kind of start with the individual. It was a study in culture. And culture can be looked at two ways, who you are and what you do. I focused on who you are. I focused on cultural identity. So when you look at the individual, then you start to look at the building, then you start to look at the site that the building's on and the neighborhood that site's within and the city that contains that neighborhood. And we're just going further out in scales, right? But then all these energies, all these messages are going back and forth, right? From the level of the individual all the way out to the level of, I stopped at city, but we can go to country, we can go to the diaspora. All these things, these messages are traveling back and forth. At the same time, if we take just that concept right there, if we're at a bar somewhere, and this is how I developed the blog, it really got, the spark for the blog. Back at that time, every cocktail blog was about pretty cocktail pictures, right? What's in the glass. But if you take a step back, if you're sitting at the bar, well, who's holding the glass? Who poured the drink in the glass? Right. Who's sitting next to you? What's in their glass? How'd they get there? What are they talking about? What are you all discussing? What happened that day? Where are you from? All these things that are going on both sides of the bar, right? Yeah. You have everything, all this life, this current day stuff that's going on the patron side on the bar. Then on the business side of the bar, you got all these techniques, all these processes, all this service, all this panache, all the show, all the design back there too, with all the different bottles, right? I always say all these pretty bottles, that's a lot to look at, right? So, that's what it comes down to is there's a lot going on here, but just focus on what the purpose of it is. Like, why are we here? So really focus on the core element of what's going on. So that's all it was. That's all my thesis was. That's all the congenial hour was. It was all these things going on in life, but let's take this common thread of drinking culture and connect everything, right?
Yeah.
So that's what that was. And I tried to express that through, in the presentation to the BBS, and I thought it went over very well. And then when it comes down to what my shrubs are, I mean, it's as simple as you get: fruit, sugar, and vinegar, But how I, put a play on that, what do I want it to be? Okay, I want to use different kinds of fruit. I want to use different sugars. I want to use different vinegars. I want to infuse my vinegars with different herbs and spices. So, it's real easy for me to put together a blackberry shrub. That's, blackberries, plain white sugar, distilled white vinegar, throw it in a bottle and sell it at trumped up prices, right? That's real easy. But it's a little bit more difficult if I want to source Banyuls vinegar, if I want to try and get some kumquats, or if I want to get some black currants, or I want to get some gooseberries, or if I'm using some lemon thyme or some Thai basil or some ginger, or that takes a little bit more thought, right? And so, I know I've said to you before, no one pushes you off the curb. If you're gonna jump off the curb, if you're gonna jump off the porch, then hey, you better be great. Why not? Why not? If you're gonna jump off the porch, go and be great. So anything I do, whether I'm writing something, whether it's, it was always on my blog. My brother always say, boring people they're painful. So if you ever gonna write something, no one forces you to put anything on the internet. So if you're gonna write something, make sure it's not boring. Make it interesting. Be interesting. That's the whole piece behind it. Just trying to show greatness and show passion behind what I do, because there's no other reason for me not to. No one's forcing me to do this. So that's the piece.
Right. It's a passion. So, like, for example, I have been working on this concept maybe since 2017 with the Bitters Reality box.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of grew and evolved to this whole, like, it's not just a box, it's a platform. Because I want to know, and I want to be able to share, one, my knowledge or interest or passion in the different cocktail ingredients, because most people don't know. Because I was in the door back in Cincinnati, Ohio, sitting up in oh my God, do you remember John Hable? You remember him?
What's his name?
Hable, Hoebbel.
I don't.
He's not okay. So I forget the name of that side of town, but we used to go over there to a bar, and so it was Midori Sour.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. I couldn't hear you. John.
Yeah,
I didn't hear you say. Yeah, John. Yeah.
Okay, so I forget what side of town he's from, but he was.
He lived over in Jesus Christ, like going up. I'm forgetting the streets now. It's terrible. I know where he lived because there was a bar over there. I know what bar you're talking about. Just can't think of the name. It's kind of like the name of the area was like College Town or something. It was something. I thought it was college related or something like that.
Like
but I know exactly what you're talking about.
But there was a bar we used to always go to, and I remember Midori Sours, right? Or
what?
Cranberry Midori Sours, or
geez.
Right. So that was me before, right? When I moved to Atlanta, and I took my mom down to Pont City Market and ran into Bitters 1821, and I was just like mesmerized, like, what is this? Because it kind of had that vibe. I know this is not disrespectful. It had that vibe of like the Body Shop, where like the fragrance making, where you dab in the different fragrances and make different things. But because nobody was there, I didn't know what it was, but I knew I needed to find out. And so that jump started my whole passion and run and understanding what are bitters, and then search and what are the other cocktail ingredients people are having, and then how do you build a cocktail? And what is the difference? And then just kind of growing from there. So it's been more of like a personal passion. And I realized if I don't know, I'm sure there's tons of other people who don't know either. So as I was working through,
they either don't know, but I think one thing is that there's, you may not know, but what his kind of driven cocktail culture over the last, if you want to say 15 years, right? We'll just start there. Is that people want to know.
Yes.
That's the thing. It used to be that, the person behind the bar, the person behind the cash wrap, in the store, they knew everything. And even if they didn't, we were fine with what they told us. But everyone ain't cocktail Jesus, right? And it got to a point in time. I know definitely when I was in Cincinnati, it got to a point in time when I started drinking more, reading more, learning more things, seeing more things. And I'm like, I don't trust what you're telling me, bro. If I went to a bar and they asked, "Oh, we don't have that," I'm like, "We don't have it. The bottle's right behind you. Like, how do you not know what's behind?" So it's just things like that. Folk try to, we don't have bitters, or we don't have ginger ale. I'll just throw bitters in some Sprite. It's like, that's not the same flavor. You know what you're trying to say?
Where are you going?
All these things
I don't know
where
where you were going, but like my
some
favorite
places you would be like, really, y'all are doing that there? and it's just things become so widespread and so ingrained in how things are done that people lose sight of this is not the right way to do it. Yeah. So just like you're saying, people didn't know, but at a certain point in time, people are like, but I want to know. Let me see what it is. I want to see how the sausage is made. I want to see. Let me take a peek behind the curtain, see what's going on, right?
Yeah. And so I think that again, that kind of what drew me into it, right? But also, like when I say people didn't know, but obviously if I put the platform out there, you're gonna say, okay, that's helpful. That helps me understand. Or here's additional guides that'll help me, like the bar book, in terms of like just technique and how to prepare a syrup or how to prepare bitters, things of that nature, right? And so it kind of giving people more of an insight. But then what I realized too when I relaunched, because with any entrepreneur like passion or whatever, you do things, but sometimes it may not work. Or you may not know what you're doing. I'm like, okay, I need to take a break. So I went through all those phases, but then I relaunched at the top of COVID. And the one thing I realized I really wanted to make sure I did was really put it out there. This is not just a box, but a platform. And if I give you a box that's filled with different ingredients, you're going to know more about that person or that group of people, why they did what they did, where they sourced their ingredients from, why they put them together the way they did, and just kind of like their view of life. Because I feel like you said, you used to have the books with just the cocktail. So you had the supreme bartender, right? But people didn't look at what was behind the ingredients behind the cocktails themselves. They just saw maybe 5 different brands in the big box store and went on their way. But there's such a variety out there, right? Like you in your area, in the DMV area, in Baltimore, in terms of, your show.
That makes a big difference too. Yeah. I mean, once you start looking at what's available to the consumer, and what piques your interest, that's really interesting. I think, when you start talking about what books are available, I really started to build up my knowledge when, remember when Borders was going out of business, right?
Yeah.
So I went to, I'm from Chicago originally. I went to 109 Fifth Street, and I'm just looking around different books. Let me see what cocktail books there. I hadn't bought any cocktail books from before. One of my guys had told me about Eric Felton's book, the How's Your Drink. I believe he was a columnist for the New York Times. He did cocktail column, and he kind of put them together, built them up a little bit, massaged them a little bit, put out a book. Really cool book. So I went and I saw that one, so I got that. And I was, let me see what else is there. So I got, what did I get? I got, is it Brewhound? I got Jason Wilson's book. I got Punch by David Wondrich, which is the holy grail to me. And I probably got another book, but one book that really got me towards, I'll say this. I come from writers, like my dad was a wonderful writer, and he passed that on to the 3 of us, my sister and my brother and me. My sister was the only person that wrote for a living. She was in journalism and moved on from there into PR, but we all have a writer sensibility about us. And so my blog was always going to have a certain feel to it, but I bought The Hour by Bernard DeVoto.
Okay.
And just the way he talked about cocktail culture, the way he talked about drinking, and it wasn't, if you look at Imbibe by David Wondrich, I bought that as well. If you look at Imbibe, where, Wondrich comes from writing, from English background, history background, he knows how to, how to wax poetically about all this stuff. He does. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to this drink, and we're trying to research how this drink was made and what goes in it. The hour had nothing to do with that. It really was just talking about life and about, it really was poetical, because it wasn't real. It was a lot of stuff that was kind of cheeky, or kind of like even nowadays might be frowned upon a little bit, but it was really cool. Seriously. So I was like, man, just the way you put that together. So I'm like, okay, if I want to do a blog, what is it going to be about? And, I was like, you know what? It's not going to be, it's about the things you talk about when you're at happy hour with someone, but I don't want it to just be happy. Let's be, what's better than happy? Congenial, so just make it, make these things grand just because, right? And just think about the, all the great things that we have and all the great things in life that you talk about when you having a good drink with someone, you out enjoying life, right?
Exactly.
And that's really where, what it came to. But yeah, there's, whether it was books and, a lot of people doing cocktail books, or whether you have people taking different paths in life, I think, the more learned we become, it really affects what we do on, as far as the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9, because you may have your 9 to 5 doing whatever you're doing over here, just like you talk about me doing architecture, another one of your people who's mechanical engineering, but the 5 to 9, oh, we're doing something totally different, right? And then you get to the point where a lot of people have, where you're getting so close to the content that you want to dive in, So that's how you get people behind the bar that don't come from a long line of bartenders, don't come from a decade and a half of bartending experience, but they get so taken with it that they want to jump in. And you get the bartender that's got 8.5 degrees, that's got 3.5 PhDs and all. It's like, well, how are you a bartender? It's like, well, hey, I'm interested in. It's just, and that's in so many things nowadays, right? Yeah. We're just so interested in things and we're open to doing anything. The flexibility of the last 20 years, 15, 20 years with people is just, it's incredible.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful thing in terms of, a lot of times people are afraid to delve into their interest because they have that whole historical or that, that familial, you should be this person when you graduate from college. Yeah. You should be married by such and such date, blah, blah, blah. Instead of just really kind of leaning into your interests, your passions, what really drives you. Because at the end of the day, I'd rather be doing something that I'm really excited about, or like, I wouldn't even say really excited. I would say that I can't go on if I don't do it, if that makes sense.
I feel you.
Meaning, like, I could feel like I have a bad day, but I'm like, but I got to figure this out. And I really want to figure it out. I might be tired, but I want to figure this out. That's kind of thing. Yeah. And that it can you to stay on your mind. And so that's, for me at least anyway, that's kind of been kind of like my passion behind all of this, I guess, I'm going to say little empire, because there's more. So,
yes, indeed. Burgeoning empire. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I got that list. I got that vision. Yeah, so whatever I'm going to call it, that is over there. It's here. It's coming.
Definitely.
So,
definitely.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about, your process for your show. Like you mentioned, okay, it's 3 ingredients or so, right? But you take more care in terms of the type of ingredients that you source. But for those who are not familiar with Shrubs, so I think I have Siren Shrubs next Tuesday. So I don't think I've had any conversation specific to Shrubs on my series. So let's talk a bit more about that. Why do I care about a shrub?
Yeah, so I'll say this. Shrubs, I'll talk about Shrubs, and I'll also talk about how I've brought myself to threeSpice.
Yep.
Because this is not what I originally wanted to do. This is not what I'm ultimately going to do. But I was able to do this yesterday, right? We kind of get into those things.
Yeah.
How can we, if you can't jump out the window You know, if you can't jump your whole body out the window, how do you get out there little by little, right? So shrubs at their core are, I'll say, produce, because you have some people that make sure that include vegetables in shrubs. You have tomatoes and fruit, but you have some people that use celery in shrubs. Some people that use fennel. There's a lot of different vegetables that people use in shrubs. So I'll say produce, even though mine specifically are fruit-based shrubs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say traditionally they have been. When I say traditionally, shrubs go back to colonial times.
Mm-hmm.
Really, before refrigeration, where people use the natural preservation qualities of sugar and vinegar to preserve, I'll say produce across growing seasons. And I'll say common in current times, they're used to kind of spruce up your cocktail or your plate or your food, however you want to use it. Because at its core, as I said, I'll say produce, but I'm going to focus on fruits. I'm going to stop saying produce. It's fruit, sugar, and vinegar. Mm-hmm. So it's a sweet and sour. So if it's a drink mixer, there you go, cocktails, mocktails, but it's sweet and sour, so you can also use it in food, whether you use it fresh, and like it's in a vinaigrette, throwing that, mix a little bit of olive oil in it to carry that flavor, and splash some on your salad, or use it as a glaze, you're throwing some ribs on the grill. If you use it as a marinade, definitely the acidity in it will help to break down those proteins. You can cook it down if you're doing a little saute, or use it as a gastrique to pour over some wonderful meat, some duck perhaps. It's just so flexible. And so I always tell people, this is nothing I came up with. I mean, I do this, and you're not going to find people that do this, but I'm not King Shrub, I aspire to be a shrub king, the shrub baron of Baltimore, but I'm not, I haven't created anything that no one's done before.
Yeah.
So what I bring to it is just the essence of what it is. I try and add more to it to make it greater than the sum of its parts, right? Mm-hmm. So what I originally researched doing was a bottled cocktail. And as I said, I'm Punch to me by David Wondrich is the holy grail. And just, everything that it showed about, it was able to focus on a particular drink, right? But also show the history behind that drink, the tradition behind that drink. And, when we talk about craft cocktails, craft does not just mean something pretty and eye-catching that I could mark up at a higher margin, right? I mean, no, craft reflects a process. When we think about these things as far as design is not just the end product. It's a process. You have to start from the beginning, where you're sitting down talking to someone about who they are, about what they're doing, and about what they want, what their values are in the programming stages of architecture, pre-design. But then as you start to develop the design all the way through design stages, and then if you get it built, I don't really care because I'm the architect, I'm the contractor. But after these drawings are done, and you really see what this is going to be there, but you've got where's my there we go. So this thing stretches from here to here, right? So it's the same thing with cocktails. And you definitely traditionally, starting out with raw ingredients and having everything work together. But I think definitely with punch, you see this process. So I'm going to skip ahead real quick to make a little funny and then jump back. But whenever people ask me, "Oh, you make show me how to make punch, or send me a punch recipe," I'm like, "You sure?" And then I send it to them. They're like, "Oh, I ain't doing all that." It's like, well, come on. If you ask me the question, I'm gonna give you the answer. All right? Yeah. You may not like it, but hey, it is what it is. Yeah. So when you look at punch, it really gives you the whole process. You have to start from citrus, right? And you start from citrus and sugar with your oleosaccharum, and you build that up and let that break down. So you see all these things working. It's not just grabbing some pretty bottles and throwing them in a glass and, because it's a big container that I pour all this in, it's punch. No, punch is, it's, compounded punch. These elements build upon each other. And then at the end of that, you have this glorious vessel that everyone can partake from, right? So it's just a great thing, starting with the oleosaccharum, building in the juice, the sherbet, whatever, and then building in your modifiers you might have, working in your weak ingredients, if that's straight water or if you're using a tea, and then building in the spirits. It's just it's a wonderful beverage. It's wonderful to think about as a process for what that means to cocktails and how it relates, how it stands apart from a cocktail. It's not the same thing, and it's just really interesting. So starting from a bottle cocktail, I'm like, okay, am I just going to bottle punch? And I'm like, I could, but that's not shelf stable. Mm-hmm. So, and then it got to the point really when I was making my punches, I like holding on to my, and this thing, the mirror is throwing me off a little bit. I wanted to tap my left shoulder, but it was off the screen. I like holding on to my shoulders. Yeah. So I didn't want to build up all this, using all this citrus juice in my punches because my arm is going to fall off, right? So I started to look at what are different ways of bringing acidity into a cocktail, vinegar, So at that point, once I found, I'd know what shrubs were, but I'm like, oh, that's pretty much what a shrub is. So if you take the 5 elements of punch, get my camera first, right? 5 elements of punch. Mm-hmm. Grab my thumb. You got the strong for the spirits. You have the weak for the water component. Yep. You have the sweet for the sugar. You have the sour for the juice, the citrus juice. Mm-hmm. And then you have the spice because they were always garnished with spice. Yeah. So if you take sweet, sour, and spice, mm-hmm. 3 elements, threeSpice, right? So I'm like, all right, I've done a ton of research on bottle cocktails and how to do it within the city of Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And got to the point where I'm like, this might take a little bit, Yeah. So, because whenever you're dealing with liquor, you're either a distiller or a rectifier. So for me to rectify within the city of Baltimore, I have to have my own facility. I can't rectify even within a shared kitchen. There's a shared kitchen incubator a stone's throw from my house. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, I can't do it at home. I can't do it at the shared kitchen. Mm-hmm. Now I'm at the point where I'm going to have to, or I would have to, we're talking capital now, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking whole body worth of skin in the game. I'm jumping out the window for real. So I'm like, okay, what might I be able to do to get to that point? If that's the end game, where could I start from? So I'm like, okay, let me back that out, take out 2 of the elements. I'll talk to the liquor board later, so I'll take out the strong. Mm-hmm. The water makes it a different issue. I'll take out the weak. So I still got my sour, my sweet, and my spice. Mm-hmm. I'll put a shrub together. I'll infuse with different herbs and spices to kind of spruce it up a little bit. And I can do that under cottage food law. So I can do that in residential kitchen. Yeah. Here we go, right? threeSpice. So that's where it all came from. And from there, just pushing it out, pushing it out to the people and literally bringing it to market. Joining, as a cottage food producer, I can sell it at markets, at farmers markets. I can sell at makers markets. I can sell under pop-ups. They've started to, broaden the law as well. So you can now the word escapes me. You have to take a food service course, and you can sell they're calling it food co-ops or retail co-ops. So, kind of still a little bit nebulous what that term is. You can mail throughout say it again.
Your ServSafe food manager certification, or what do you?
Basically. So it's part ServSafe, but a little bit more than that. Because really the biggest thing is, and it's less of an issue for cottage food, because the whole piece behind cottage food, you can't have any issue of foodborne illness possible. That's the whole piece behind it. So that's what, I was actually the first shrub to be approved in Maryland under cottage food law. No one ever tried before.
Oh, you made history.
I did. Your boy. We'll talk about me during Black History Month. Yeah. So the whole piece is it's about finding opportunity to get where you want to go. Right. I will do a bottle cocktail, at some glorious point, but for now, to get to that point, I know you watch Shark Tank. What do they talk about? They talk about generating attention. They talk about showing proof of concept. They talk about showing something, what are your sales? Like all these things. So before I just say I can do this over here, let me show them that I've done something. I've built something up and let people know who I am outside of the people around me, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it came to. I'll focus on the shrubs. Let me push that. Let me see how seriously, because coming from bartender, I knew I could make something that tastes good.
Yeah.
That was the least of my problems, the least of my worries. It's just, how do you put all these things together? I'm not a natural entrepreneur. I don't come from entrepreneurism. I come from education.
Yep.
Having your job, decades, get that gold watch.
Mm-hmm. That conversation we had.
So I come from that life, So to now have this under my arm, it's really cool. It's shown me things that I never had dreamed of. I've done things I never even conceptualized.
Exactly.
And the saga continues, right? So I'm pushing. That's the thing. I'm pushing. I'm trying to do things as best I can with the time I have available. Corona has been heartless. She's been heartless. Just shutting down the world, shutting down life. And I think for a cottage food producer, it shuts down your outlets.
Mm-hmm.
I think also with, as I said, generating attention, it was always more important to me to show what I'm doing than just do it. Because if I'm trying to generate attention, like I started out with a line of 6 shrubs, right? And I've done many more since then. But I started out with 6. So I used to tell people it's more important to me that 6 people buy 1 shrub than 1 person buys 6.
Exactly.
I don't need these shrubs to just fly out of here. I'm not, it's not breaking me to make these things.
Yeah.
My margins are good and they don't cost $800 to make. I don't have to sell them for $3,000, right? Like, hey, shrub, $9, tops is 11, real easy. They don't, last I checked, strawberries aren't buying strawberries and Demerara sugar, the champagne vinegar ain't gonna break the bank. It's not.
Nope.
It's just not. Nope. So the cost in this is easy enough that I can, the point of entry is easy. I can make it work. Mm-hmm. But I need to get to my end game, right? So that's the whole thing. It's about building attention. It's about growing your tribe. It's about, learning from people that are doing it and have done it, and just, taking baby steps and keep, as long as you, like Chris Berman says, as long as you steady matriculating down the field, you're going to make it. So that's all I try to do. And just try and learn from people such as yourself that have a lot of knowledge to offer and that are doing a lot of things. You don't think you are, man, but you do it. But it's just, iron sharpens iron, that. Mm-hmm. So, and also, hey, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That's what I get from hospitality. It's just, you never, I think I said this to you when we were talking to Josh, and if you're never far away from your last dollar or your next dollar. You don't know hey, is this next one going to be my next one or my last one? You never know. Mm-hmm. So because we all connected in that same realm, like if you're at the same restaurant, hey, we all privy to the same glories and the same defeats. So we rise together and we fall together. So if you need help, hey, right there, I'm gonna help you out now because I may need your help in a minute. Right. So that's the ethos I bring, that I've gotten from hospitality, and that I try to bring. I'm gonna share anything I have with somebody when it comes to learning how to do something or whatever. And the assumption is that that's gonna come back towards me because we all trying to make it. You know?
And even if it doesn't come back, who wants to put that type of energy out where they're like,
true. And at the end of the day, they can, I'm not, I found out I've had to do research. I've had to study things. I've had to, put in a few calls and ask the person what this is and, talk to the Department of Health and, talk to this producer over here and this person, this organization. Like, I've had to do all that work. I'm the only person that's ever done it, and that's come out with threeSpice. But there are tons of other people that have done that same work to do whatever they've made, whether they've, whether they're a distiller or a producer of some product or whatever. They've had to do that same work. Mm-hmm. So if I can save someone from going through that same amount of legwork to do whatever they want to do, hey, cool. You know, You know, you don't want to give away all your trade secrets. So, you know, my babies are mine. But I definitely would help anyone get to where they want to go.
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch on something you said though around. Well, I lose it. Around. It's kind of like that crux or like that fine line between hustling versus like hustling or like I guess the type that's like built on desperation, getting the sale versus building the empire, building the tribe, like looking at it from a like the long haul versus like the quick dollar.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, like even just in our community, that a lot of times people are looking here, we all are looking in this direction.
Yeah.
Like, you know, let me build something that's long lasting that others can benefit from, you know, that I can actually serve my community and not just look for the extra dollar I need in my pocket. So how do
there's different ways of looking at it, but it's real, again, it's real simple. What Biggie say, the streets are short stop, right? So you can go after that quick money, and this is the piece, right? The feds are always watching. The liquor board is always watching.
Yep.
It's real easy for them to pop up on anyone that they choose to at any particular time.
Yes.
So because of that, I always tell folk, hey, I'm gonna be a Boy Scout about this. I don't want to have to keep a Tommy gun under the couch because someone said Nikolas Hill is slanging liters of gin that he made in his bathtub in the morning. Like, I don't want to do that. So I say all that in jest, but the piece is, I want to make sure I'm clean about this. And also, hey, if this is something that I don't know, and at the beginning of this, I did not know how to do it, I got to look it up and see how it's done, right? So it's real easy to take the shortstop of just doing what you know and just staying there. And you know, I could have just thrown, I could have emptied out. So I could, whatever. It's an easy way of doing what I want to do, but it would have been a shortstop.
Yeah.
So if I want to make sure this is sustainable, that this is something that I can build upon, and definitely in later years, definitely the last few years, of really seeing what business enterprises truly are and what they should be, and how to carry things on without yourself, how to do things without yourself. So this entity is all over here, and you over here chilling in the Bahamas somewhere, right? Like, how do you do those things aside from just dreaming about them, right?
Yeah.
You have to set things up in the proper way. So it's really, and you see a ton of people on the gram selling flasks of strawberry Hennessy for 2 for $15 or whatever. It's like, hey, if that's what you want to do, vaya con Dios.
Like I have seen, or okay, so there was like an event that was happening, like a fundraiser, and you know, a reputable restaurant in the area, but they I guess put a like a I don't want to say shed, but you know, they just put like a nice little, think of a container on a boat or whatever, one of those things people make houses out of, to like sell alcohol on like the parking lot outside because they weren't having people inside.
Yeah.
And I don't know, was that location or they did it somewhere else? Because we went down for a friend, but they were telling us how the ATF came to check on them. So it's like if the ATF was checking on them and they've been in business all this time.
Yeah.
I'm not playing with somebody telling me to do something. Oh, well, you can do this under the table, but nah. Or
exactly.
You know,
yeah, there's certain, you know, there are levels to this, but you know, there's a limit to, and this is just all I've heard, right? I know nothing about this personally, and no one around me, but there's a limit to how public you want to make yourself. There's a limit to how obvious you want to make yourself. And there's a limit to, you know, in what you want to operate truly. Like if you really just want to sell little hand-to-hand cocktails, selling them 2 for $20 or whatever, like you can do that. And hey, are you gonna get caught? Probably not. Like, you know, you ain't dealing with no big money. You ain't hurting, you know, you're not operating with outside of a big circle. But if I want to set up a bottle cocktail and put it out to market,
yeah,
and really grow something,
Yeah.
I'm going to set it up how it needs to be set up and figure out how to do it. That makes all the sense in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That just makes, hey, if anyone got anything else to add to that, I'm open to listen, but I'm probably not. So that's what it comes down to. I think, looking at things for what they are and under Corona, bars and restaurants have been able to do things that they might not have been able to do without the pandemic. Liquor boards across the country they've loosened up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely in Chicago, it took a little bit. I'll say in Illinois, I'm sorry, it took a little bit to get to get people to for restaurants to be able to sell bottled cocktails. Whereas in Maryland, that was pretty early, as far as the pandemic. Now there's a couple things. Okay, how does it need to be labeled? How does it need to be bottled? But out here, Maryland, definitely I'll say in Baltimore, that's where I live. But folk were doing bottled cocktails pretty early.
Yeah.
I
have a question though, I know when we talked about the different processes and you mentioned rectification, you were referencing the bottled cocktail because that's potable. Like you're going to drink that whole bottle, right? Versus like creating like a bitters, which is non-potable, or a syrup, and you're just using something to preserve it, not necessarily to drink it. Are you guys, so in I guess in your area, do you still have to also apply for certification with the USDA, Department of Agriculture, or is it just strictly FDA and Department of Health? Like, is that different for you?
To do what?
Well,
because that's the thing. It all depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, so like the bottle cocktail.
For the bottle cocktail, well, I'll say this. I didn't take that process all the way to figure out everything I would have to do because I found a different way to do it.
Okay.
If I was going to take it all the way myself, I'm sure I'd have to go all the way to the feds. I have to get all types of licenses and everything. And that's just beyond the distiller's license or, rectification license. But I mean, just to get, a building permit. And, so I was talking to, I remember talking to Jackie, from Sorrel, Jack from Brooklyn. And he was like, just to do what he had to do in New York to get a rectification license, you have to have everything set up already. Like you can't just put forth a business plan, a little 8.5 by 11 business plan and say, hey, that's what I want to do. Like, no, where's the building? Where's your permit? Where's your use an occupancy permit that you can get in here and start going? Where's your equipment? Like we need to see everything.
Yeah.
So this goes from being a thought and something written down on paper to no, you actually got to have the capital to be able to put all this stuff in a building and really be able to make this happen the next day, right? Basically, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things. You got a lot of, I don't even want to say hoops because you got to make it happen if you really want to do it like that.
Exactly.
But yeah, so when it came down to me doing threeSpice, I mean, that was easier. I still had to talk to the Department of Health first to, figure everything out. And I got rejected at first. And the guy that I was talking to, he was frustrated with me because he's like, I don't see why. Like there's nothing here. Like you add acid to acid, you get more acid. Like my product is not going to turn. There's nothing in it that's going to have it turn. There's no issue of foodborne illness. So he's like, I'm gonna keep pushing, ask a couple more questions, but that's where we at for now. So at that point, I was like, man, I might have to jump out the window, like I was saying earlier. I may have to jump out the window and go straight to the bottle cocktail. But then it came back to me. It was a couple months later, But he was like, just call me up. How you doing? Congratulations, you're the first shrub to be approved under the Cottage Fruit Law in Maryland. I was like, really? Like, so I can do it? Like it was kind of out of blue. I didn't know. I thought I was rejected, right?
You need a plan. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I had to send this up to Cornell, to their food venture lab, to get a food venture center to get a pH sample and go through that. I mean, so there's a lot of things that, I mean, this is, once you're dealing with any kind of food, it is very scientific, but there's a certain standpoint I'm sorry, there's a point where you can say, all right, I can take this further, but for what I want to do, I'm not going to go that far. So to answer your question, I know that all the assurances and all the licenses and all the certificates of this and that, I'm sure it's a ton that I would have to do if I want to do things myself. But if you're able to reach out to other people who already have those things and work in concert with them, well, hey, that may make a lot of sense based on how you want to do it. I mean, there's, Jay-Z didn't go out and create his own champagne. He bought one, right? And he built it up and then he sold it. So you don't have to do everything yourself unless you want to. There's some people that want to do everything themselves. And when it comes from makers, it's kind of, we don't even think about it. Secondhand. Like I got two of them, two opposable thumbs, right? Like that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing it myself, but you don't have to do things yourself. You don't have to do it by yourself the whole time or through the life of your product, right? You can it's a business enterprise. If it truly is, if it's a job, then go make it a job. And, a friend of mine said that last year, a business is supposed to be able to sustain itself without you. If not, then it's a job. It's like, man, that's a major key, So all these things are something that, whether our kids want to, pick it up one day or not, or whether we want to have the whole world sing our name, and hey, who knows, who cares? But if it's something you want to do and you're passionate about it, go on. You might not have to jump out the window to do it, but you're going to have to sit down at the table for a little while, to hash it out.
Yeah. And I think that still goes back again to, I cannot do it. Like I have to do it. And I think, people have to step back and just take inventory of themselves and what really is, what's valuable to them in terms of their time and what they focus their attention on. In terms of, if I really want to do this, do I want to do this for the long haul, or am I just really interested right now, but I'll be bored in 6 months.
Exactly.
Right. And so you gotta know that you gotta know that up front, or at least you gotta monitor yourself throughout the process, so you're not just wasting money. And then going back to your scientific aspect, because we mentioned when you talk about the book Punch, and just how people are like, oh, I don't want to go through that process, and then the fact that even to get to that recipe took different iterations of here's a 1/4 ounce of lime to, oh wait, let's try a 1/2 ounce of lime and see what that does. Oh, let's go to a full ounce, or let's remove it all together and tasting and going back and doing all that stuff. It's a whole people there. If you really want to know and you really want to understand, you're going to go through that type of a process if you're really going to try and make your own product, whether it's even regular food or regular food. What is that? But cooking, whether it's cooking or in cooking, it's the same process. But the need to be consistent takes that level of effort and to trying those things out and trying to make sure that it's balanced appropriately, and then making clear record of that. And again, it kind of goes back to who you are, because just if I were to go back to the photography lab, the dark room, what I value about the dark room is not really the end result, but it's the process. Spending the time where I'm going to the bath, do the stop action, to the hanging, to then going through and looking through the lenses and try to figure out, okay, let me, dab this here, or I forgot my term because it's been a minute, but so the whole thing is the process. Whether it's photography, whether it's art, whether it's drink making, whether it's cooking. I think if that drives you, I feel like you'll be successful. I think we both come from that. We come from studio culture. We come from, we ain't never been afraid to put in the work. Never. And we know once we start putting in the work, it's not gonna get done quickly. We're gonna be here for a while, right? I mean, that's the whole piece behind that. But then for me to go into the service hospitality industry, a totally different industry, but see, man, they're about hard work. Man, they're about putting in the time. And they got processes, they got techniques, they got flair, they working with their hands. It's a different industry, but I'm learning a lot of the same values, and I'm expressing them in different ways. Yeah.
And I've seen greatness on both sides. I've seen greatness in architecture and design. I've seen greatness in restaurants and bartending. So
it's a matter of
I've been able to take all that
yes.
and witness it and know what greatness is. So when I want to do something, I know the examples that I've seen. Yes. I know that I'm not going to do it like they do it because that's them. But I'm not going to do anything, number one, that I'm going to be disappointed in.
Yes.
But when I tell them about it, they're going to be like, oh, man, I see what you're doing there. That's slick. You know, I told one of my guys, I talked about before, my guy Glendon, but I was, got a chance to chop it up with him last weekend. Was talking to him, he's, oh, man, you do really? Like, oh, limit time? All right, I see what you're doing. So, that's all you want. You want the people that you respect.
Yes.
Just reflecting that the same, like, man, I see what you're doing there. One of my old chefs, I saw him a couple years ago, and I was, already doing threeSpice and was doing some things, and we were out somewhere and popped up on him. I was like, hey, what's up, man? He said, hey, how you doing? He's like, hey, see you on the gram. Like what you're doing. I like what you're doing. So I was like, man, appreciate that, chef. So, it's great to get that because, I learned from them definitely. I observed what they were doing, definitely. We were in the same spot, working hand to hand, elbow to elbow, back to back, whatever it took, to get the work done. So they know I got it. But for me to be doing this and for them to big me up, it means everything. It really does. So, yeah. So I'm just trying, Hey, I got whichever ones I have, whatever I do, it's always, I'm striving for greatness in a bottle. Right, a little 5 ounces of greatness is all it takes. So
tell us the names of them, and then we're going to go into like the speed round thing.
Yeah, so these are just 3 that I had available that I could put up for display. But so this one, I have Grandma Jasmine, Dark Matter, and Cackalack. Yeah, the Cackalack. So they all come from. So I'm not going to take too long on this. So I started out with 6. Right. Yeah. I would say the first 2 that I started with were my Rosé Shrub and my Autumn Pear, Pair. So how I kind of come up, as I said before, I don't have just like, if you want to say straight, single varietal shrubs, if you want to, put a name on it. I don't have a blackberry shrub. Say that again?
Nothing wrong with single varietal if that's the passion and the goal.
I feel you. I feel nothing wrong with that at all.
In a shrub will have a conversation, and I love her to death, and I feel like y'all should meet because she's really passionate about what she does.
Cool.
And for work. So yeah, but she's big on single varietal because she wants the essence of the fruit to present itself without her.
I feel that.
Yep.
I feel that. And all of my shrubs come from. So I've talked over the last almost hour now, man.
All of them
I've talked about like where this all comes from, right? So using that as a background, you get an idea of what I'm putting in the bottle.
Yep.
Right. So I was never thinking like I just want to have a cranberry shrub, or I just want to have a blood orange shrub. Like I'm gonna have compositions. I'm thinking from a cocktail perspective. So I'm thinking from a wine perspective.
Yeah.
So my rosé shrub, what are the notes you get from a rosé wine? You're going to have some red berry in there. You're going to have some citrus. You're going to have some stone fruit. And then the color of it, you may have some that are, some from Tavel might be the darker red. You have some other ones where you have Lord, such glorious rosés. You have some that are basically lighter orange colored, right?
Yep.
But they're going to be in that color spectrum. They're going to be in that flavor spectrum. So my rosé shrub, the fruits that I use are strawberry, white peach, grapefruit, and kumquat. And then I used a mixture of aged red wine vinegar and champagne vinegar. So it gives me everything I'm looking for. And then, demerara sugar. It gives me everything I'm looking for in that flavor spectrum. And then, the color is going to be in that general area too. I just always tell people like these things it's not like Kool-Aid, and that's how wine is too. Like if you get a chocolate note off of wine, It's not because someone mashed up some Hershey's bar and crumbled it up and put it in a bottle. You know, it's a note. It's something that you taste or smell, and it generates something in your mind. But it comes from some part of that process, whether it comes from the fermentation or it comes from the aging, something in the barrel, or it comes from oxidation. You know, it's something that comes from that process. Yep. So Royal Gris is what I was thinking of. I couldn't think of, but it's more of a light orange colored wine. So that's what I was going for the rosé shrub. For the autumn pear, I'm like, okay, let me get a different flavor profile. But autumn PAIR for fall fruit and fall spice, right? So fall fruit, I'm going for some apple, pink lady apple. Go for I did some Asian pear because I didn't want to just use regular pear. Well, let me try some Asian pear to be a little different with it. What you said?
What is a regular pear?
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. It's not that I had to use some another shrub, but I wanted to be a little different.
No, I'm saying
I used quince.
Oh,
say it again.
I was saying, what is a regular pear though?
Oh, just like a Danjou pear or like a red pear, a Bartlett pear, or
yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So one thing about an Asian pear, they say it looks like a apple but tastes like looks like a pear but tastes like an apple, something like that. It's got texturally, it's kind of a hybrid of the two. And it looks kind of like a hybrid as well. It's more round like an apple is, but it's not. It's a little bit more hardy than some, I'll say, regular pears again. But the flavor is a little bit softer. It's a little bit more floral. So I really like it. But then to add quince to that, I mean, quince is it's a glorious fruit.
It's amazing.
Yeah, isn't it though? So
I did a little syrup with it last year, and I went back to the store because I keep thinking like, produce, certain, whether it non-traditional produce would be plentiful in Atlanta because it's Atlanta. I go back to the store to get quince, nowhere. I call all these different grocery stores, nowhere. So I couldn't replicate it for what I wanted to do, but it was just like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I learned about it from Daphne in a Shrubs, right? And so it was kind of like, okay. Like, that's one of my favorites, but it's so scarce down here.
It is, and it should be. All these things to various degrees should be, because they grow, and we have to deal with growing seasons, and we should work with things when they're in season. It definitely adds a highlight to what you do, and it definitely adds a highlight to what I do with shrubs. So my jar that I use, so Bormioli Rocco jar, is the Quattro Stagioni for 4 seasons. So the whole piece behind the shrub, it kind of speaks to the ethos of that you may have things that grow and you may enjoy them during one part of the year, but there's going to be one part of the year where you either can't get them or you may try and find a way to enjoy them again, right? So, and that's what people did. They preserved these things across growing seasons. So you have 4 seasons in a jar, So yeah, and then with the rest of the autumn pear, I use ginger and lemon thyme to infuse my champagne vinegar and demerara sugar for the fruit to break down and to create the syrup. So, all those things to be said, was I thinking of a particular cocktail when I made that? Not necessarily. Was I thinking of a particular? Sometimes I think of cocktails. Sometimes I think of just composition. Sometimes I think of flavor affinities. I think of, and am I just trying to be different for different sake? No, but I'm not gonna make I'm not gonna make a shrub. I'm not gonna make an apple cinnamon shrub and put it in a bottle. I'm not. There's enough apple cinnamon products on the market. I'm not gonna have a pumpkin spice shrub. What does that even mean?
Spice? Oh.
No, because like, what does it mean? It's like, seriously, pumpkin on its own is, you have some fruits that are the canvas. They're the blank canvas, right? And you're supposed to build on top of them. So whether you just want to dump a whole lot of cinnamon on it or a whole lot of nutmeg or whatever, fine. But that pumpkin is what the pumpkin is. When you talk about pumpkins, you're really just getting a lot of cinnamon and nutmeg. And if you don't like cinnamon and nutmeg, or if you realize that there's a whole spectrum of baking spices, you can get into your cardamom, you can get into your allspice. There's other things out there that are just as glorious as cinnamon and nutmeg. You know,
nice stack over there. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just different things to do. So I'm not trying to be different for different sake. I'm just trying to do things differently, you know?
Complexity and some inexperience, because once someone were to taste that, I can visualize and I can tell what the experience will be based on how you explained it, that I'm going to have a different experience throughout my taking it in.
Yeah.
On the top.
Yeah. The one thing that's glorious about it, we're talking about quince. Quince has this strong honey. It's a hybrid, kind of like a hybrid between an apple and a pear, but it's got this strong honey note to it. So no matter, I've done about maybe 3 or 4 batches of the autumn pear, and that honey note always shines through.
Yeah.
It does. And so I really appreciate that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So always good stuff in my bottles. I mean, I've done maybe, I don't know how many. I'm well over 16 shrubs now. 16 different shrubs I've made. I don't know. Obviously, don't always have them on hand. The dark matter is my shrub that is the most hyper local. The most. It's just hard to get. I mean, you know, black raspberries are around like 2 weeks out of a year, 2 weeks of a growing season. So if you don't get them, hey, you look up and you miss them.
And I know this now in terms of like my new path, you know, to make sure I get in with the, what do you call those people? Distributor? Like, here, give me my stuff right now.
Whether it's the farmers or distributors or whatever. Yeah. You gotta get stuff when it's available. So you know, my shrubs that have black raspberries or any kind of currant, you know, black currant, red currant, kumquats, you know, I don't, you know, I let my shrubs, I hold my shrubs for a while. So I'm not just making it and then putting out the next couple of weeks. Like my shrubs have time on them. One, they're not going anywhere. Like they're shelf stable. That, you know, what they say, Twinkies, cockroaches, and shrubs are going to be around after nuclear holocaust, right? So my shrubs aren't going anywhere. So Corona didn't hurt me from that perspective. I wasn't losing any inventory at the time.
Right.
But you know, but I'm also, you know, if I like, it just is going to affect what I have in the future. It's going to affect me at some point in the future. That's how I have to look at it. You know, if I don't get kumquats. So last year I sourced from a grower in Florida. I wasn't able to get in contact with them this year because the spot wasn't open. So I wasn't able to get them. So it doesn't mean that I don't have shrubs now that have kumquat in them, but I wasn't able to produce with kumquats this season. So, or definitely a lesser extent. I was buying like 10, 15 pounds of kumquats last year. So if I'm just in the several pounds of kumquats this year, my shrubs that I put out in the future are going to be, you know, it's going to be less. So that's that piece. But they're always good. I try and use some kind of, you know, a pun or something that reflects the essence. I mean, the cackalack is, you know, I go down to the in-laws in Charlotte, and I wanted to go see a farmer's market there, and they had these muscadine and scuppernong grapes that I hadn't seen before, real big and thick-skinned and incredibly fragrant, just smelled wonderfully. I just take the bag, just take it all in. You know, it smells so wonderful. So I took those, and I found a tea producer down there and made a jasmine tea that smelled wonderfully. And I infused champagne vinegar with that, broke down those muscadines and scuppernongs and some demerara, and there I go. That's a cackalack shrub, right? So
how many iterations did it take you to get to that?
How many what?
Iterations did it take you to get to that version? Like if you're taking,
I'm one take Nikolas when it comes to shrubs.
I was gonna say in terms of when you're going in and you're, you know, kind of testing out different flavors, or I only have like a few items, or this is what's available right now. Do you take the time to like, let me buy this right now and then I'll go back later, or you're like, it's all or nothing?
No, I will. If I make a shrub, if I put thought to, so this is me. I'm not a genius, right? I'm I'm not sitting up here like I'm Trump, like I'm a very stable genius. You know, he's such an idiot, that damn phrase, but it's hilarious, right? But even if I'm writing, like I type, right? I'm not the only person in the world that types, but I don't sit down and write and then type it into my computer or whatever. Like I sit down, and when I say I sit down and write, I sit down and write. It just comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So when I put thought into something, I'm putting the thought into it right then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go through tons of it. My design has never been that iterative. And that kind of hurt me at Cincinnati because one of the professors I had tried to get us to design iteratively.
That's a big
design with iteration. I'm like, I get it, I understand it, but if I got a concept, then that's what it is.
Yeah.
If I just want to make 1, 2, and 3 just to have 1, 2, and 3, and you take the lowest bid, all right, fine, you know. But this is what it's gonna be. So when I thought up my rosé shrub, it was what my rosé shrub is. When I thought up the cackalack, is what the cackalack is. When I thought up the dark matter, is what the dark matter is. Like really, like that's what it is. So I may have I have made some, you know, just handmade and kept at the crib, some single varietal shrubs. Like when I'm testing it, when I'm looking at different types of fruit for one, and it's come from a bartending aspect, how you break them down, you know, how you work with them, how much juice you're able to yield, and how much you got to strain it and all that. So I made I've had a kiwi berry shrub, I've had a aronia berry shrub, I've had a golden berry shrub, which is like a Cape gooseberry shrub, a Shiro plum shrub, just different things. But, you know, if I see something at a farmer's market at a store and I'm like, oh, what's that? Grab it, I'll break it home and shrub it up. Like, ain't nothing to it. It doesn't mean that I'm going to throw it right into a jar and sell it as threeSpice, but I may want to use it down the road. Now, the other thing is, because it is cottage food for now, I have to, I got to stop shaking the table, the screen shaking. You know, I've got to watch my pH levels. So there's, you know, I can basically use, I'll say this, I'm limited to, I cannot use tropical fruit. That's basically what it is, like melons. I can't use persimmons also, and figs. So there's some fruits that the pH is just, it'll throw my shrub out of whack and I'll be over the limit, you know. So no big whoop, but, you know, berries, stone fruit, palm fruit, ribes, you know, there's so much out, grapes, there's so much out there that I don't even have to worry about finding enough fruit to come up with another shrub, you know. Even from the ones I made, if I just want to focus on ones that I made, I can have a collection of 8 and be totally fine. And I haven't even gotten into the watermelon, the honeydew, you know, I haven't. And I love persimmons. I've made a glorious persimmon punch 2 seasons ago. That was wonderful, but I can't make a persimmon shrub. So now I can't make it now. But that's the thing. So when people say, you know, where I'm selling at the market, I say, oh, what's your favorite fruit? Watermelon. And I was like, give me another one. What's your second favorite fruit? Right? You know, because I just want to, you know, see what people are into. But you know, people love tropical fruit for a lot of obvious reasons, right? But I can't use those. I can't use them in my shrubs for now.
Yeah. That's all right.
Yes, indeed.
So let me go ahead and let me drop into this, well, I guess you call it a speed round, right? Just kind of ask you a question. Maybe like what's right off the top of your head. Right. And based off the previous conversation, you are not big on paralysis analysis or whatever they call that, right? Right. So if you were to move back to Cincinnati, what neighborhood would you move back into and why?
It's not very lightning, huh? This is the thing, okay? Okay, I would maybe I would like Hyde Park.
Okay, yeah.
kind of in that area, maybe a little bit south of Hyde Park.
Maybe Oakley? That's what it sounded like to me.
Oakley was cool. Oakley was cool.
I was right there. Yep.
I'll say this. When I lived in Cincinnati, when I moved out there, I lived in Mount Adams.
Okay.
When I first got to Cincinnati, now this is a piece. I knew 2 people in Cincinnati. I knew David Kirk because we were in Noma together. He was the Midwest. I can't even talk. Midwest Regional Vice President of Noma at the time.
Okay.
On the national board. I was on the national board as the Midwest University liaison. So we knew each other from Noma. And I knew Dennis Mann, who's one of the professors in their School of Architecture. I knew him for years since I've been in Noma.
Is he the one that he managed the directory of all
I the director of African American architects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were the only 2 people I knew in Cincinnati. So when I took a visit out there, I went to go see Dennis, went to go chop it up with David, and then I was like, okay, let me go see what the city's about. I hadn't been to Cincinnati before. Mm-hmm. So I went driving around, and then I made my way along, I think Eaton Avenue or whatever, and then went around, I can't think of the park. Is it Eaton Park that's over there?
Yeah.
And then over the bluff, right, looking over the Ohio River. And it just kind of led me in. I was like, oh, this is pretty nice. Right. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can find an apartment that's somewhere around here, So I found an apartment in Mount Adams, and when I first looked, I found that one, and then I found a couple more that were further out along 52, but I was like, that's too far. Like, it'll take me like 15, 20 minutes driving to get to campus. But I didn't want to live that close to campus because I was older too, coming back to school. I was in my mid to late 20s. I think I was 26 or 27, 26, something like that. So I'm like, I'm not, gonna be, this ain't gonna be how I was in undergrad. I'm gonna be living like a grown ass man, right? So, but I didn't want to live that far away because it's still studio, and you still have to you wake up, you up late, got to run your ass to school. So, I wanted to be relatively close. So I was able to find a spot in Mount Adams that, speed round, right? I was able to find a spot in Mount Adams that was, it wasn't too expensive, even though Mount Adams definitely could get up there. But it gave me what I wanted. It gave me everything I wanted. So, but I wouldn't live there again, probably, because I'm thinking about family, and you got to think about schools. And I don't know what schools are in Mount Adams. I don't know if there were any schools in Mount Adams. So I'd have to look at other areas. So I was, okay, where else did I like? And I liked Hyde Park. I liked Oakley. House and stock seemed to be cool around there. I'd be able to find some things. So that's the long answer in the speed round.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I tried. Marymount, if you remember that area.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lived in Oakley. Well, when I first moved to Cincinnati, I picked my apartment because I was doing the same thing because I was going back into the graduate program, and I wasn't gonna live on campus. So I was like, I'm gonna find an apartment. But I did it this way. I looked because I didn't know anyone except for like one person that someone introduced me to in Cincinnati. So I didn't know them before arriving. It was my friend knew of them and introduced me. And so they didn't really help me in terms of like finding somewhere to live. They were way out in like Forest Park, basically. And I wasn't trying to live out there. But I found an apartment in, I think it was labeled Eaton Park, but it's those apartments with those bay windows right at the crux of Walnut Hills, East Walnut Hills, and Eaton Park. So you had the money, new money. You had the prostitute, Skyline, and the BMW, basically. So that was interesting. But my favorite, though, honestly, was when I lived in Oakley. I lived in Oakley for the majority of my time after I left school and stayed right square across from the theater and the big giant monument that complex. Oakley would be the place, or Hyde Park, just for the church that I lived in. And I would always go to the farmers market every Sunday after church right there in Hyde Park. Yeah. So, memory. Okay. Speed round. All right. Favorite architect? It can be nobody.
Different answer, right? So I'm not going to give you the answer that would usually come from that because I never have.
Yeah.
My favorite architect right now is Steve Lewis.
Okay.
He's the first person that popped into my head. I've answered Jack Travis to that question before. I've answered James Washington to that question before. I've answered John Gage to that question before, Brian Hudson. These are all architects that I know personally, that I've met through work or through NOMA. And that's meant more to me than who your favorite rapper is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So stylistically, who do I appreciate? It runs the gamut. I mean, who did I look at for my thesis? Looked at Freeline, looked at Ajay, looked at Douglas Cardinal, looked at a ton of other people, you know, stylistically. But it's not just styles with them. There's a lot of substance there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the 5 architects that I named earlier, you know, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm big about community. I'm big about, you know, the people that you learn from are more important than these pseudo role models who you're supposed to fashion yourself after. Mm-hmm. You know, the industry is the industry, but no matter how woke people want to get or appear, I'm still the other, and I always will be because I always have been. Mm-hmm. So support comes and it goes. It can wax and wane. It can be fleeting or it can be heavy sometimes, you know. Yeah. But I'm gonna stay over here with my people. So my favorite architect or architects are the people that I know that when I see them, we give each other a pound and a hug. We're laughing about this. We sending texts with that's the people that have, you know, let me cry on their shoulder, that have put something in my head, that, you know, that I told when my pops passed away, like stuff like those are my favorite architects because they're my favorite people. Yeah. So that's where that comes from.
I love that. And that goes back to your blog and to your thesis in terms of looking at the people, not the product or not the outcome, but the people and the interaction. Mm-hmm. Oh, see, that's good.
Yes, indeed.
Let's see, one other. Where would you, if you had an opportunity to get on a plane today, where would you go? Like a one-way ticket, where would you go and why?
One-way ticket?
Yes.
One way.
Yeah, one way.
How much money am I taking with me? Oh. If we stay in one way, that means I can't come back or I'm not coming back. So am I not coming back because I can afford it? Or am I not coming back because I'm on the run?
Very resourceful.
Because if I leave, that means they can't find me. You
are very resourceful. You will figure it out.
I'll say this. Well, my thesis co-op at DAP was in London. So I worked and lived in London for 6 months. I absolutely love London for a lot of reasons. I learned so much there. I experienced so much there, and I was able to kind of bounce around a little bit and make it over to Dublin and Belfast and Geneva and, you know, just Paris. It was a wonderful experience. Mm-hmm. That would be a one-way, and I figured it out once I got there. The Bahamas would be a one-way for pleasure. Beyond beautiful, mm-hmm. Just beyond beautiful. I proposed to my wife there. So I know we'd enjoy it. I think those are the 2 places. If I'm thinking professionally and kind of what I'm into, London would supply that. London could provide that and support that. If I'm thinking personally, and if it's a one way and I ain't gotta worry about this ignorance over there. I'm going to the Bahamas mine.
You are very thoughtful.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Thoughtful.
Speed round, right? Speed round.
Yeah. What speed round?
Right.
All right. I want to talk about spirits just a little bit. So I guess I'm gonna change this from a speed round. This might be the last question, but I want to talk a bit more about. Some people may say, "Oh, my favorite spirit is this."
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're able to say, or do you kind of view the realm of spirits as I can do the same thing, or I can apply the same knowledge to all of them and I will enjoy them all the same way? Or do you have a favorite or something that you lean more to that you have a desire to learn more about? Like even if, like with your bottled cocktail, I don't think you mentioned what would be in that bottled cocktail, but I would imagine that if you had an affinity towards one particular spirit, whether it's bourbon or tequila or something, that you put a lot of effort in learning more about it, and so that's like that's your go-to. That's the one that you love. That's the one that you really want to learn more about. Are you able to say that?
It's so I'll answer your first question. I enjoy all spirits. Mm-hmm. I always say I'm a Scotch man at heart because Scotch is what I learned first. It's not what I drank first, because we all start from the dregs, the the ends of the earth, the depths of hell, right? So that Bacardi Lime and Sprite, I was saying before I was in undergrad, while I was still in high school, is where we started. Right. But the first spirit that I learned when I was going to tasting events and everything, it was Scotch. Mm-hmm. So that definitely showed me what it meant to pay attention to your palate, to see how things affect your palate, mm-hmm. how to experience a spirit by nosing it, by having it soak up into your pores and really becoming it, and definitely tasting it and seeing how it's composed. I learned it was a Johnny Walker Black Label session, so I learned blended Scotch first, which showed me what single malt Scotch was. Yeah. So I'm a Scotch man at heart. I've always, that's why I learned first. That's why I will always appreciate. It's what I drink. So I start there. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to for an affinity, I mean, I love Pisco. I love gin. Yeah. I love there's just So there's so many things to use. It all comes in when you first started saying it. My mind was going in a certain direction, but I was like, it all comes back to why are you drinking? Like, who are you and what do you want to be, right? Like, what do you want to drink? And the whole concept, the ethos of the blog of the Congenial Hour was the how, where, and why people drink. Because if you know those things, that'll point you towards what. Mm-hmm. That'll point you towards what to drink. So where am I? Why am I drinking? And in what style? That's the how. In what style do I want to drink? And that'll point me towards what I want to drink. I want to give me a G&T. I want to be here a little bit we're chopping up. But I need some like a session where we're gonna be talking. I need some. You know what? I'm having a shift drink. Give me a one and done. Like all those things are different styles of cocktails. Whether it's a G&T, whether it's something that's more sippable, a lighter cocktail, whether it's just Bonal with a little bit of soda, or I'm having something brown and bitter. It's so many different. Say that again.
Or more savory than sweet.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many different styles of cocktails. So I do run the gamut with all that. But as far as what I would put in a bottle cocktail or how I would design a bottle cocktail is the same way I do my shrubs. Like I don't. I won't say the same. It would come from the same place. I won't say I would do it the same way. Mm-hmm. It will come from the same place. So these are all different compositions. And then, I might have the bourbon cocktail. I might have the gin cocktail. I might have the Pisco cocktail. But it would come from the same place. I say that.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you very much. Yeah, I pulled out my Lafroy because, I don't know if you hear the same things, but most people, if you will say that if you've never had scotch, don't drink this. Start with something.
I learned that I had that for the first time in London. Someone had me drink it.
And so what I ended up doing, because I had to prepare for an event, and I did a flight of myself. Like, I tried to make it as blind as possible, meaning I had little jars and I poured this one and monkey shoulder. So I had single blended.
Yeah.
And I would walk away, like I would take a sip out of like these 2-ounce bottles, actually 1-ounce bottles, and walk away, come back. What one was I drawn to? Which one was I drawn to every time I come back?
Indeed. Because it's heavy with peat, but I think it's a peat mask. There's you still have to deal with the mouthfeel. You still have the floral notes that are coming. It's not just dirt in a glass. It's still a gloriously well-made scotch.
It's beef stew, and I don't want to say just beef stew. What it made me want afterwards was that heavy meal, that savory, hearty, something like it was like that experience, like that hug.
Yeah.
Like, more the pear or like, because I'm not a sweet person. I kind of veer towards like your bitter and your savory, right? More sweet. So I was like, okay, this is cool, but I can't. Nope. That was the one I kept going back to, and I just thought that was crazy. So I don't know. When you mentioned scotch, it made me think about the whole experience for me was that process to learn more about my palate and what I am driven to. Is I really want to know what am I naturally drawn to, not what people say to do, but what am I naturally drawn to? So that's what happened. But yeah. So any last words that you want to share with the audience before we go? 5 words.
The word 3 _ the word spice on Instagram. Actually, it's on the banner. I don't even have to say it. See, I always try because I'll always remember to have the little. Well, here's your to-go package. You got to remember where to find me. Like I don't sell myself to that level very well. I'm trying to get better, but it's already the banner's there. It's the word 3 and then spice in big letters on Facebook. The blog is The Congenial Hour. It's on Tumblr. So thecongenialhour.tumblr.com. Content never dies. I haven't blogged in several years now, but content never dies. And yeah, other than that, I'm in Baltimore. I'm easy to be found. The Shrubs are easy to be found. You could have any of these right now if you hit me up. Just work through, direct messages. And then when the weather breaks, when Corona breaks or, outside starts to loosen up a little bit, definitely, we'll continue putting energy into responsible pop-ups in this new age we're living within. And that's the movement for right now. threeSpice is definitely the movement, but watch my trajectory because I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be slinging shrubs forever. So watch my activity.
I can't wait to try some.
Yes. Oh, they coming, Mary. They coming.
All right. Well, I appreciate you so very much.
Thank you so very much, Mary. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing. Not just here my shrub, but here I am, Mr. Nikolas Hill. Here's what I do, and here's why it's great. So thank you so much for sharing. And with that, everyone, thank you so much. Also, don't forget to go visit thebittersreality.com to get our latest box, which features a signed copy of the bar book. Where's my page? Where's my signature page? There we go. Bam. So we got Jeffrey Morgenthaler in there sharing his wisdom and his books for us, and they're all signed personally for you as well. So there's the box. There's the link. So again, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. And I'll be trying some threeSpice shrubs at some point this year.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, man. Take care now.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.